Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Tronnes, just want to follow up on a couple points. Isn't it true that under President Biden, that administration had warned the Canadian government not to proceed with things such as the digital services tax and the online streaming tax?
Correct.
So there's a number of trade irritants that are perceived as trade irritants no matter who occupies the White House. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I would say that's a fair assessment.
So do you think it's worth Canadian government, the general public, members of parliament, to be self-reflective about how we got here instead of, just blaming one individual? Isn't it worth kind of just questioning how is it possible that, both major parties in the U.S. have had significant challenges with Canada over the last decade?
To that point, the reason that the Macdonald Laurier Institute decided to do what no other Canadian think tank has done and set up an office in the United States was because back in 2023, we realized the relationship had major problems. Problems that Canadians weren't seeing, problems that even some Americans weren't seeing, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that Canadians just weren't listening. We were going in, flying down, coming in and out, having meetings. Just because we watch American news, we tend to feel that we understand the country. It is a foreign country. And likewise, Canada is a foreign country to Americans, and they're kind of learning. We're all learning that now. But we recognize that well before Trump was in power, that the relationship had challenges and that Canadians needed to listen. And that was the whole reason we set up the Center for North American Prosperity and Security.
Thank you. Do you think it's helpful for Canadians to go to America and tell Americans what's good for them?
Well, I think that would depend on which Canadian and who you're talking to. Yeah, that might be a tricky question.
Right. I guess I'm asking partially because, we've heard from a lot of people, both sides of the aisles. We've had some conversations. I've had conversations with both Democrats and Republicans. Do you think that the notion that there'll be tariff-free access to the U.S. is like fading away before our eyes? Like, is it, there's not that many U.S. politicians. I can think of only one senator, Senator Paul, who's full-throatedly defending free trade in the United States, and he's quite lonely.
I can tell you, I have many conversations on the Hill. Behind closed doors, there are a lot of allies. There are a lot of congressmen, there are senators who are extremely concerned and who are hearing it from their constituents. As we get closer to the midterms, it will get more difficult for them to resist some of the problems and the pressures. Particularly already we're seeing it from the farmers in the soybean agriculture sector. But the Trump administration likes to do things quietly behind closed doors. They don't like it when you pop your head up and start criticizing them. And so a lot of our allies are doing it quietly. But they're not doing it because it's what's right for Canada. They're doing it because it's what's right for their constituents and their manufacturing sector, and because tariffs are going to be expensive. However, just a few months ago here in Ottawa, I had a conversation with Robert Lighthizer, of all people, the grandfather of tariffs, and he said that, the first rule of tariffs is you should not tariff your inputs, and that in his mind, the idea of the tariff regime with the United States doesn't work if Canada and the United States, if the CUSMA agreement goes away, because there's so many inputs into the American manufacturing sector across the board that it just wouldn't work. Now, he's on the outside of the administration, so, he's retired now. I don't know how far his voice would carry on that. But that is worth remembering, that this is something that is negotiable. I would love very much for the tariffs to be a thing of the past, but the president has been very clear. Tariffs is the most beautiful word in the dictionary, and he has a goal of getting tariff revenue.
You're 25 seconds over.
Oh, 25 seconds over. Well, Madam Chair, thank you for your indulgence. You're
going
very generous. Former committee chairs that I've been on previously shall remain nameless, a little bit more abrupt
Is that
than
right?
yours.
Well, when we're receiving great information, regardless of who's asking the question, I think it's important to let that information get to the table, which
Thank
is
you,
what
Madam
we're
Chair.
doing.